Pretty usual living on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It's Wednesday. Let's take a look at some alts. Thursday, we do a live stream on this very channel. I'll put out a link to that a few hours before we go live at 2 p.m. EST. If you want to join me and shout random tickers at me, and we'll take a look. So on the alt side, I am mildly optimistic based on technicals. Fundamentals couldn't be more of a dumpster fire, couldn't be more of a problematic outlook. Rates going to infinity. Are we in a recession? Is inflation under control? Disposable income is gone for people who are dabbling in this stuff. Like, alts should not go up from here, but the technicals look okay. You know, maybe we see weakness in the dollar finally. Oil got dumped today. So maybe that's enough for something to happen. I don't know. I think what we'll start to see is selective coins break out. Link, Solana, we'll start to see coins break levels. I don't think we'll actually see ETH break any specific level. I think the market's actually too big for the amount of money that's in the system right now. Maybe that's counterintuitive, but there are some setups that we'll get to in the back half here where things look semi-okay. At the very least, we're not crushing lows on some of these charts. So on the total 3 market cap chart, minus Tether, minus USDC, minus wrapped Bitcoin, we're still in the unsure phase. Is this a reversal pattern? Is this a continuation pattern? Are we just ranging and this is random nonsense? Still not sure. But if we start to make higher highs, that's obviously a good sign. Now, again, no promises. I actually don't think this will happen, but there are setups that I cannot deny. Okay, as much as every non-altcoin bone in my body wants to admit. What don't we have on our side here? We don't have rates on our side, we don't have regulations on our side, and we certainly don't have stablecoins on our side, which have essentially flatlined. USDC's kind of stemmed the bleeding at the moment. Tether basically flat for several weeks, months now. So this will be the more obvious sign. I think something else that is probably worth paying attention to, no guarantee it'll matter, but worth paying attention to, would be the PayPal USD stuff, because at least it's through Paxos, at least it's onshore. The USDD stuff, the FDUSD stuff, I know they're minting. I have no idea what the status of those reserves are. I don't trust the company in charge of them. TUSD, BUSD, right? All this, we can say that such and such supply is up, but I have no clue what's going on with the reserves. So you can either just blindly trust that, or be like me and be somewhat skeptical that who knows what's going on over there, right? In any event, there was the largest PYUSD mint the other day. Now, admittedly, this is small, this is nothing, right? But at the point we're at in the market, to see any activity is a sign of something, right? So somebody's using this for something. I haven't heard anybody talk about it, but it's something to watch at the very least. We also had and have some slow regulatory stuff on our side. This is old news, right? But this is the kind of thing we want to see come out of the US, where we have a bill. It says, look, you got to keep your reserves 1-to-1. They got to be onshore. They got to be low risk. They got to be in a bank, whatever, right? Something to get the stablecoin engine going here. It'll probably be everything USDC is doing. It'll probably kick Tether offshore, as it already pretty much is. But we're not there yet. It's something to watch. We have had some positive news with ETH products. The volume on them has been quite low. Not a lot of excitement there. We do have some more interesting deadlines coming up. If we're looking for things to be bullish about, right? We're looking for any sort of regulatory relaxation in any regard, anywhere in the market, right? The next deadline for the ETFs is somewhere in January. So it's a little bit down the road. Now, let's say we shut down the government somewhere between now and before January, and it sort of tips the SEC's hand into actually making a decision on this stuff early, like they did on the October rulings, right? This is like playing 10D chess here, but let's say all these dominoes happen. We may see rulings on this before January 15th, which would be the BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF. The SEC may get out in front of that if the government is shut down or something, right? If there's some downtime there that would make this untenable. Now, the other thing to watch is October 13th. So the SEC has 9 days to overturn, or not overturn, but appeal the grayscale ruling. So as he says here, something else to watch for the rest of this month. So slowly but surely, as we all have read, right, this was, again, old news, September 4th, but we'll take it. It's better than nothing. And this is an old stablecoin bill. Be careful what we wish for, by the way, because this might not even be something we want. This may be full of garbage nonsense. We know what we want the result to be, but to actually make the sausage and get there and cook the sausage, and then we're going to have to eat that sausage. Okay, so be careful, because it might not be what you have in mind as far as stablecoin regulations in the United States. In any event, the early stages of that happened months ago, and obviously the government's been a little busy lately. We did have some more positive regulatory news in regards to an SEC appeal on Ripple being shut down. I think Ripple's trash, fundamentally worthless, right? But this is positive regulatory news, okay? So we'll take it a yes. Now, again, the government's been a little busy, and maybe they clear things up before the 45-day window that they gave themselves, but I'm going to assume they don't. They're kind of dealing with ousting a speaker for the first time ever in history. They're talking about bringing Trump as speaker. Like, they're not really focused on crypto regulations right now. You know what I mean? And here's Binance, which still continues to be a smoldering fire. And maybe we don't see broad activity in the market until this is cleared up, right? Whatever the resolution is, as long as we have a conclusion on what's going on here. I would watch the DEX volumes. If DEX volumes start to pick up, you know, somewhere around the ruling or whatever it is, right? If it's a fine, if it's a shutdown, I don't know. For Binance, I'm saying here, I would expect DEX volumes to pick up. I'd expect some alts low caps to just dissolve to nothing, right? If they have no place to trade, you know, stuff like that is certainly possible with that. So there's still no resolution there. So there's definitely a lot of things to get cleared up here. But again, on technicals, things are looking okay. Now for ETH is not one of those things that I want to play with right now. ETH to me is chop, low EV, low value. I mean, this could go to 1,000. It could break out at 1990. I don't know. I'd much rather pretend to care when it's back above or at 1990, or show me some volume, right? Show me some enthusiasm that people actually care about this stuff. We had like a week of green candles and everybody thought we were going to go to infinity on these futures ETFs. It didn't happen, obviously, but pretty directionless on ETH. This was, of course, you know, we had some low time frame positive stuff, Adam and Eve here, double bottom, we broke out. That didn't last, right? This is not a market to me that wants to go higher. ETH is also dealing with positive emissions, which admittedly it's minimal, but that sort of breaks down the whole narrative of, you know, ultrasound money. If we zoom out, we can say, yeah, it's been negative since the merge. Perfect, great, whatever. One thing that'll be super interesting, again, if we're talking about narratives, everyone on the ETH camp is focused on these emissions being, you know, lower than Bitcoin, right? Wouldn't it be interesting if after halving that actually crosses for ETH on a low time frame, right? As in ETH emissions exceed 0.8% per year, right? Just something to think about. I don't know if it'll happen, but man, wouldn't that be interesting? The validator queue for ETH is basically completely cleared as far as people trying to get into the validator queue. Again, I've talked about this for weeks, but if there's some mega price disruption to the downside, watch for this exit queue. That to me is a sign of capitulation, and that's what you'd want to see. If we look at the yield has come down quite a bit. I think it's between like 3 and 3.7 according to this website, but the incentives are declining, right? So you'd expect less people to be throwing ETH. And on top of that, ETH price is going nowhere. So I don't think there's a lot of attention in general from outside capital looking at ETH. Something else that's brewing with ETH is the Lido problem. It's nothing new, right? But it's not resolving itself. It's not going away. And people will say it's not an issue until something happens. That's fine. But look, if you're looking for risk management or ways ETH could get ugly price-wise, watching Lido go to 33% and something happen, you know, if anything, that's a good thing because that shows that ETH is anti-fragile. Like, you should want to see what happens at that point, right? I don't want to see ETH explode, but I want to know what happens when a staking service has 33% plus of the market share, right? I think that's inevitable. I think it's bound to happen. It's good to see Figment getting a lot of inflows over the past month. Let's say we see, Binance go by the wayside. That may be enough to tip the scales on the pie chart here in favor of further Lido dominance, right? It'll also be interesting to see what happens if something does happen with Lido on that validator set, if we start to see panic and people exiting. I'm just building a story. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying I want it to happen. I'm just thinking what could happen that could get ETH out of this sideways funk, right? To the bullish and the bearish side. I think on the bullish side, it's Bitcoin halving, it's BlackRock ETF, it's whatever else, right? We already know that. But on the downside, things I'd be looking for would be, the foundation to get shaken on the Lido side. And as far as ETH BTC, still bearish, still nowhere near making a higher high. Continues to creep lower below 06, and we're just not seeing flows that favor the ETH USD side of things. So in the near term, I like 052, long term, post BlackRock ETF, potentially 035, 036, all the way down here, right? Before we get to the rest of the alts, let me mention today's video sponsor, Kraken Pro. Kraken Pro is a complete overhaul of the Kraken trading experience with a one-stop shop for advanced and professional traders. Kraken Pro enables efficient trading execution across multiple markets with a UI that allows for unique optimization tailored to your trading style. You can check out Kraken Pro with the link in the description of this video. I put all the links that I'm talking about in the description in case you want to see and bookmark anything else. Popping over to Kraken Pro, I always like to check out the volume every day, see what's hot, basically. And my hypothesis has been we're not going to see a bull market until the crypto volumes are above stablecoin volumes, and we're still quite below that on the BTC side of things. Just not a lot of volume across the board. AVAX, a little bump today, we'll look at that. Ripple got a little move on the announcement yesterday. I still think it's in the range. We'll take a look at that. Generally here, kind of a mixed bag over the past 24 hours. Link doing pretty well. Again, still in the range, but just based on the volumes, not too much going on across the board. We'll talk about Link first because I think that's what everyone's sort of watching in the moment. Talk about Link BTC first on the right here. Link BTC potentially starting to break out of this falling wedge. Doesn't look horrible, and this is where you want to live if you're trading alts, in my opinion. You want to trade against Bitcoin unless you're trading a very specific setup on the USD side of things. But if you're not beating Bitcoin, then what's the point? That's just my opinion. On the Link USD side of things, still in the range. This may end up building an ascending triangle over the next 3 months. This may break out at 850, I don't know, but doesn't look bearish. Looks neutral and has certainly ranged long enough to break out. So this is one of those charts that has the potential to break early while nothing's going on because it's sat here sideways for so long. Ripple, I really wouldn't touch probably for any reason at this point ever again, but looking at the USD chart, it's in the weekly cloud at the very least. It's made continuous higher lows. It's kind of just been trendless for the past, 6 years? And against Bitcoin, it's basically been down only. Green cloud on the weekly though. If this does make a higher high, there's your technical evidence. If this gets above 3,000 sats, let's say, there's your technical evidence. I don't know what planet we would be on if that actually happened, but that's what I'd watch. Sol BTC on the high time frame cloud. Basically I just bounce around until I find a cloud that has encapsulated the entirety of the downtrend. The 2-day fits that, and this is about to twist. Bullish prices above the cloud, or at least trying to be above the cloud. And on the USD chart, it's got an inverted head and shoulders brewing here. So I don't hate it. Again, is it decentralized? No, not at all. Just saw a thread today about Solana Foundation paying for validators, Alameda paying for validators. This is not a long-term trading opportunity. Okay, this is a technicals look good, and I'm going to plug my ears and my eyes around everything else and just pretend that number can go up after all. And for the first time in over almost 2 years, right? It's above a trend metric, despite being as choppy as it is, despite FTX selling, despite the FTX hearing, right? All that stuff. It looks okay. It looks okay. That might be the title of this video. Cardano, again, probably not something I would touch, but undeniably, technicals are getting better-ish. Against Bitcoin, it doesn't look great. No bull div here, per se. You could maybe argue a weak bullish divergence here, but still very much in that multi-year downward channel. On the USD pair, there has been somewhat of a continuous bull div over the past year. This may Adam and Eve out, right? If this makes a lower low, that's it. All bets are off. But much like the total 3 chart, you may get this VU with resistance at around 41 cents and then a breakout from there. The cloud will tell you anything above the 3-day cloud at 35 cents is probably good enough. So again, this doesn't look el horrible, okay? Doge, again, you don't need to have me say it has no fundamental value. This doesn't look as good as the other charts did, right? Basically sitting at lows, looks like, you know, a downward channel, downward trend. On the BTC pair, it looks like it's ready to make new multi-year lows. Ultimately, I don't want to think about this until it's at 100 sats on the BTC pair. And just look at the 3-day cloud, right? 3-day cloud is telling you ever since, what is this, like early 2021, when it broke down, there's just been no reason to stay in that thing. MATIC on the BTC pair looks absolutely frightening. If this makes lower lows, much like BNB, right, it has very little support until much, much lower. So is the risk reward there? Probably not. Probably not. Now, if you're like, you know what, I'm a MATIC bull, I like the team, I like the token, I like the tech, I like it all, Josh, this is a great buy. Go for it, right? It's at the bottom of the range. It's not for me, but I don't hate that as a potential. Something you'd want to watch for is just any higher high, right? Any higher high would be great for MATIC BTC. Weak bull div here. Price makes a lower low. RSI does not. On the USD pair, zoomed way out, this is the 3-day. Much like Cardano, this may set up for an Adam and Eve. It also may set up for an ascending triangle. You may get a third higher low in like April 2024 or something. Trend is bearish. Does look oversold. Does have a bull div on high time frames. Doesn't look horrible. But the moment that makes a lower low, I'd be out of that trade. I'm not going to touch this personally, but it's something, you know, if you want to get spicy and look at that and make some trades and force some stuff, that's one place you could do it. Now, DOT, I wouldn't touch with the 35 million foot pole because it is continuously making lower lows, no bull div. I know the emissions on this thing are astronomical. And if you look at the on-chain activity, it just isn't there. There's just nobody using this thing. So this would be probably a late cycle rotation trade, if anything, not an early cycle pre-bull setup. There's nothing here right now. There's a world where this could Adam and Eve over the next 3 months, right? But the cloud on the 3-day again tells you leave it alone until it's above 6. And the BTC pair, I mean, what else is there to say? You know, definitely not anything bullish about what's going on there. Tron BTC. This chart looks phenomenal on the USD pair. Not anything I would touch or trade. I don't trust the network. So for me personally, it's just not worth it. But the technical evidence is there. If this can get above 320 sats on the BTC pair, right? That's clearly a line in the sand since basically Tron was listed in 2018. That's a pretty big level. And on the USD pair, it's above the 3-day cloud, continues to make higher highs, right? It doesn't look like hot garbage. Compare that to DOT, right? Completely different story. Absolutely different story. Certainly looks better than just about anything. LTC at a multi-year support. The red highlights here are Bitcoin's halvings, which have certainly been more important for Litecoin than Litecoin halvings. And may just want to sit this one out until after Bitcoin halving, because pretty clearly Litecoin halvings don't seem to matter too much. And on the BTC pair, almost back to all-time lows. So doesn't look so hot for Litecoin. AVAX probably heard me talking crap about it the other day. It has bounced pretty decently from a bottom here. Personally, I would rather trade setups that look like Sol or Link or something else. But you know, if you're an AVAX maxi, sure. I know AVAX has a ton of emissions as well. I put this in the DOT bucket where probably needs a little more repair for me to think about it. But like MATIC, you know, if you're looking for something to do, this isn't the worst thing. It's finally turned a corner a little bit, and on the weekly, it's made higher highs on the BTC pair. I don't think these BTC pair rallies will last necessarily, but in the moment, they look okay. And you know, here's Uni, high time frame cloud looks completely bearish. It's at the bottom of a descending triangle on both the BTC and USD pairs. Does not look like anything I want to live in the moment relative to Sol, relative to 5% interest rates. You know, you got to think about it like that. And I know Uni has tons of emissions as well, so that's not going to save it. Lastly, I'll look at Monero. Monero looks okay. It has tail emissions, if you're not aware. It has a small continuous emission. So inflation is quite low for Monero. The problem is it's not listed everywhere. It's listed only in a few places. And globally, the regulatory crackdown on privacy coins has really hurt Monero. Love the tech, but ultimately if nobody can access it, it's going to be very hard to push this thing higher. It is traded on Kraken. That's the one place in the US you can actually get access to it. So I like that it's made continuous higher lows effectively over the past couple of years, really. So it doesn't look terrible on the USD side. And on the BTC side, it still has that inverted head and shoulders characteristic to it. So, you know, look, for me, this is pretty good. I'm pretty bullish on some of these coins. They at least have potential to make higher highs, whereas last week, the week before, they just looked so dumpy. And there's also something to be said with legacy selling off and something like Sol going the opposite direction, right? So if anything, maybe I'm too bullish based on what I'm seeing, but I don't hate that as a setup if I can find it. I don't hate trusts that look like that at all. You know, this looks very good. It even has an inverted head and shoulders arguably on the BTC pair. So maybe the Sol maxis will have their fun and Lido explodes and, you know, there's some Sol ETH trade. I don't know. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe. Join me tomorrow at 2 p.m. EST for the live stream, and happy trading.